Bonjour everyone and welcome back to my channel The Waves of Your Soul. My name is Maureen, I'm a French tarot reader and I'm so happy to have you join me for this video which is gonna be my July 2021 favorites. So I did my June 2021 favorites. I had to think there like what is the month before July? June comes before July, so I've done my June 2021 favorites and it was the first video where I actually showed my face and I was, sharing things that were a little bit more personal and being a little bit more of myself. And you were so nice, all of you. I had really lovely comments, and so thank you so much. I'm so grateful, that you take the time out of your day to watch my channel. I know that there's plenty of stuff to be doing, and there's plenty of content on YouTube and everywhere else. So the fact that you decide to come on here, watch my videos and comment, it means the world to me. And because it was actually a really nice experience, I decided to do it again. So I think what I'm gonna do is do those videos every single month. I can share my favorites, a bit more of a talk, get to know me kind of videos. I'll share with you what I've been loving this month, the decks I've been using, of course, because this is probably why you're here, for tarot and oracle content. I'll share books, lifestyle bits, having a chat with friends. So as per usual, I'm gonna put in the description box below the names of everything I mentioned. If it's anything indie, like any indie deck, I always put the link of the place where you can buy it, because it's super important when it's indie decks, indie oracle and tarot, that we buy directly from the creator, and that we don't end up getting scam copy, which I know are kind of like growing everywhere on the internet, as I have done with my previous favorites, because I talk about different things, not just tarot and oracle. I'm also going to be putting timestamps for each of the categories, so you can just watch what you like, or if you want to stay for the whole video, and I'm very grateful for that as well, of course. But you do you, so you can come for what you want, and you'll find all of that in the description box below. So without further ado, let's get started for my July 2021 favorites. So the first category I wanted to talk about today is books, and I've got one book to share with you. Now this particular book, I have the French version because I'm French, but it exists in English and in Spanish and in other languages. So in French, this book is called Trois amis en quête de sagesse. In English, it is called In Search of Wisdom, and in Spanish, it is called Tres amigos en la busca de la sabiduria. And you're welcome, because I've just butchered that in like 2 languages. I'm gonna hold it up right here so you can see the authors. Of course, I'll put the names of it in the description box below. So this book has actually been written by a Buddhist monk, a psychologist, and a philosopher who also happens to have a very heavy disability. Like the philosopher is in a wheelchair, he suffers from chronic pain, etc., which is important in regards to this book because it gives 3 interesting perspectives. And what this book is about is just 3 friends talking about wisdom, looking for wisdom, talking about life. So this Buddhist monk, psychologist, and philosopher met for a few days and decided to discuss everything that makes life what it is, in terms of more philosophical questions like pain, communication with others, accepting change, communicate with others, how to learn to live with your emotions, what are your emotions trying to tell you, what is the root of your pain, how to live with pain. So it's a great book around self-development. Every single chapter directs into a different topic, and every single topic is of course something that we would be interested in as tarot lovers, oracle readers, etc., because they relate to what it feels like to be human, So when we talk about pain, when we talk about the body, when we talk about forgiveness, when we talk about dealing with our emotions, dealing with grief, dealing with others, and boundaries and respect, those are definitely themes that come up during our tarot readings. The fact that it comes up with different point of view, from a more Buddhist religious approach, from a more psychological approach, and for a more philosophical approach, is so fascinating. And I have found this book so helpful, not just for my personal growth and my personal journey. I've talked about on my channel that I have gone through very heavy health problems that I am still battling. It's a long journey. Healing is not linear. My body doesn't work the same way that it worked 2 years ago. So for me personally, any book that talks about pain, illness, the body, change, etc., learning to take life as it comes, learning to be grateful for what you have, all of those things. Anything to do with like shadow work or self-development is something that is very important to me. But also I found this book so fascinating because I think it gives you a lot of ideas for tarot readings for yourself. Even though it doesn't talk about tarot once, it still very much gives you pointers that you can then use to create your own tarot spreads. So there, if you think about this whole chapter around forgiveness, and you have different point of view from those three very wise people that people go to all the time to see conference, and you know, they're very respected. Their point of view can give you a lot of ideas around tarot spreads you could do for yourself, questions you want to ask yourself for journaling, and just generally looking at your life. And I think if you look at your life and you try to understand yourself better, you would definitely become a better tarot reader as well. Also, I think it's very valuable because when we are tarot readers, we're faced with people with very different point of view. So it's interesting to see how different people can look at the same subject. You know, if you like reading books that are about what it's like to be humans, and you know, personal development, tools to help you feel better, and tools to help you live better with others, and ideas around how to become more free from your mind, etc. This book is fantastic. They actually have done a second book totally about tools, so lots of personal development tools to help you deal with any kind of emotion, and I'm so excited to read this one as well because I think they are really great. So this book is honestly full of golden nuggets if you are on the path to bettering yourself, if you're on the path to wanting to go a little bit deeper in your personal development, and also if you're on the path to self-development with your tarot. I think you could definitely get inspiration from this book to then create your own spread, etc., like I've mentioned. So this has definitely been my favorite book of the month. Okay, let's move on to TV shows. So if you've watched my previous favorite video, then you'll know that I'm quite a bit consuming of TV shows. I don't really watch TV like real TV, but I definitely love watching TV series. I'm more of a TV series than a movie person. I like longer storylines, and this month I haven't really watched a lot of new stuff. The only one new TV shows that I encountered is on Amazon Prime, TV show that is called The Boys. So there's 2 seasons of it. Now The Boys is a very irreverent, very crude, very, you know, strong language. I'd say it's potentially 16 plus. They use the C word a lot, and I don't talk about the corona, you know, word, not that one, the other one. So there's a lot of that. So just, you know, putting it out there, it's not for a younger audience, but it's been very fun and I've loved it, and I watched it all in like a week or and a half or something. So The Boys is an irreverent take on superheroes and superhero stories. So in The Boys, superheroes are real, very much like in Marvel movies. And so, you know, there's like an equivalent of Captain America and Wonder Woman and, you know, The Flash and everything like that. I don't think it's Marvel, so they didn't call those superheroes that, but they were very much, you know, copies of those Marvel superheroes. But in that particular world of the TV show, those superheroes are actually rubbish human beings. Cheaters, they are traitors, they are murderers, and they live a life where they don't give a shit about anyone else because they have superpowers. In The Boys, there's this group of boys that decide to come together as some kind of like some kind of a mercenary group to expose how horrid those superheroes are, and how actually the opposite of heroes they are, and how, you know, corrupted they are, and how murderous they are, and all about collateral damage that they've caused. And so it's a really fun show because it literally flips everything we've seen about superheroes totally on its head. So it shows, you know, what would happen if superheroes were real, but if they were just regular people who just still wanted to do what they wanted, were selfish, wanted to get girls and get money, and didn't care if, you know, when they were trying to save the world, they had a lot of collateral damage on the way. And loved the different perspective it brings on superheroes, and, you know, it's literally the opposite of everything to do with Marvel. And I'm not a huge superhero person. I love sci-fi and fantasy, but, you know, that's not my favorite superheroes normally. But this I definitely enjoy because it's almost like a satire of everything that we normally see. The characters are also really interesting, you know, they are full of flaws and they're definitely not perfect, so I've definitely been enjoying this one and I recommend it. And so that's on Prime, it's called The Boys. The other TV show that's been my favorite this month has been Game of Thrones. I watched it before when it was on, you know, religiously every single year, but I had not really rewatched the entire series since it had been finished. This month I had some medical appointment, which meant I had to be pretty much bedridden for a week while my body was recovering, and so I needed a project. I needed a project and I needed something that I could watch even when I was feeling like in a lot of pain and I couldn't really focus that much. And I thought, well, let's just rewatch Game of Thrones because I've seen it once, but you know, so I know the main story, but I have never rewatched it entirely, so I might discover new things. And you know, it's been a journey and I've really enjoyed it, honestly. Of course, I'm disappointed just like everyone else on how rushed the ending is. To be completely fair, I don't think the ending, and you know, I won't give you spoilers in case you've never seen it, but I've never been like super shocked at the way it ended. I kind of had foreseen the way that things were gonna turn for the better or for worse. My biggest grief with this TV show is that the last 2 seasons are so rushed, you know, and I really enjoyed the character development over several seasons. I really enjoyed the slower pace, and this, you know, having just a few episodes instead of their normally 10 or 11 episodes that they do, it just felt super rushed. Things were moving so quick, and so I felt like it lost a lot of depth. And you know, the last season that's kind of my main grief about it, but I still very much enjoy rewatching everything. I mean, let's be real, for me it's still one of the best TV show out there, and I have ordered the Game of Thrones Tarot because I don't have it, and rewatching it I was like, this is a mistake, like why don't I own it? You definitely rectify that. I mean, let's be real, by the time it comes to where I live it'll probably be like 2030 or something, but when I get it I'll talk about it, of course, because I'm super excited because I'm a Game of Thrones lover, and so I'm very excited to play with the Game of Thrones tarot. I'd love to know if there's any Game of Thrones lovers out there. What did you think of the ending? Like, were you shocked? Were you just disappointed? Were you angry? Because that TV show really created some strong feelings, I think. And now that, you know, it's been 2 years, I think, since it ended, how are people feeling about it? I think, like I said, for me personally, I'm disappointed that it was rushed. Not so shocked at how it finished in terms of the storyline, but I know some people absolutely were destroyed, which I can understand, and especially after the show was on for so long. And some people really loved it, so I'd love to know your opinion because it's very divisive, it seems, and I'd love to know what you think. I think they're actually filming a spin-off for Game of Thrones that's coming out next year, for what I've seen, which is gonna be like a prequel where all about the Targaryen family, and so that should have a lot of dragons and everything. So that would be interesting. Hopefully they can redeem themselves, and maybe by now people will have forgiven them for, well, no, having kind of ruined the last season. Although I will say the last season has one of my favorite episodes ever. The Long Night is an amazing episode, like on its own as a standalone. It is so good. They did ghost dirty when you know, that's one thing I don't like about the episode. Okay, so let's move on to decks, you know, Tarot and Oracle decks, which is, you know, my personal favorite category, Tarot and Oracle decks. So I have 3 Oracle to share with you, and I have 3 Tarot decks. So let's start with Oracle. The first one I wanted to talk about is called, I have the French version, but it exists in English. So in French it is called L'Oracle des rêves de la déesse by Wendy Andrew, and in English I think it's called Goddess Dream Oracle. It's a mass market deck, so you can get it on, you know, Amazon, Book Depository, your local witchy shop or bookshop, whatever you use. You know, guidebooks with explanation for each of the cards, and I think it has a couple of spread as well. But this deck is very, very beautiful, which is what has drawn me to this, and I've been mostly using this deck for my daily pulls in the morning. I think it's a great one for just, you know, you need a pick-me-up, you need something to think about for your day, disconnecting with like whatever the fuck is going on in my head and trying to come back to the present moment. This deck has been fantastic for that. So first of all, can we talk about those backs? I don't know what the back looks like for the English version, but for the French version it's like so beautiful. So I picked mine totally on a whim at my local bookshop. I never even heard of it when I bought it, which is very rare. Normally I never buy anything before looking at the cards online and watching people's video, everything, because I know what it's like to waste your money on something you're not gonna like. So I like to do my research, and this is why, you know, this is how I've discovered Tarot, because there's so many people out there who do reviews. So I'm very happy that I was drawn to it. As you can see, the artwork is absolutely beautiful, and as you can see, it's very simple. There's like a full-on image, there's a keyword, and there's a sentence. So this is supposed to be a goddess inspired deck. Now I don't think that every single image showcases a different goddess, but more divine feminine energy. So some are goddesses, some are more elements, so air, water, etc., but all with a divine feminine pull. And there's a lot of, you know, pagan inspiration. There's a lot of owls, there's a lot of rabbits and all of that, but this deck is just so healing and so soothing, and I find it very compassionate. I find it is very a great deck for when you're just feeling a little bit down, or and you need kind of like, you know, a hug from the universe, which when do we not need that? The imagery is so soothing, it feels very grounded in nature. I think you could definitely be using it with tarot readings. I've paired it with some of my tarot readings, it's been fantastic. I'm sure you could do bigger spreads with it as well, and maybe pair it with other oracle decks as well. But it's very much mother, divine feminine kind of energy. So if you're looking for a deck that kind of fits that vibe, then I would definitely recommend this one. So I've mentioned the An Oracle by the same creator in my June favorite video, but the particular deck I showed in that June video was limited edition, so it's now out of print. But this one is very much still in print, and it is absolutely beautiful, and I've definitely been loving it this month. So this is by Copper Rabbit Illustrations, which is an indie, you know, artist. So I'll put the link over, you can get this below. And this is supposed to be a dream interpretation oracle deck. So it comes in this really cute 2-piece box, and it comes with one of those kind of like paper folded things. Keywords for each of the title cards, and inside you also get a really big spreadsheet, which is really cool. So there's no guidebook, there's this, but this is personally for me it's enough, because you can definitely read this deck intuitively. So the size is also really cute. It's kind of like slightly smaller than tarot size, so it's really handy. So this deck, as I mentioned, is supposed to be a dream interpretation deck. So every single card represents something that we would normally see in our dreams or in our nightmares. So you'll have things like empty rooms, or falling, or being chased by a monster, but then you also have things that are a little bit more regular oracle decks, such as guide and fire and, you know, air and things like that. So the artwork is absolutely stunning. That's one of the main reasons that I actually got this deck, is because I really love this artist. I didn't really have any dream kind of interpretation oracle deck, but I've not really been using it for that, because I've been mostly using it for magic. So I don't really define myself as a witch at all, purely because I don't really like labels. I don't like to, you know, be put in a box. So that's personal preferences, but I still definitely, you know, believe in magic, and I do a lot of things that I guess witches would be doing. So, but I'm just not a big like ritual person, and I don't really follow a specific calendar. So, you know, I do my own thing, which I'm sure a lot of you do as well. So I've been using this deck for magic, in the sense that I will be using those cards to put on my altar to manifest something, or to attract a certain energy, or to repel a certain energy, and then I'll be putting crystals around it depending on the energy that goes with the card, maybe some objects, you know, on my altar, maybe some oils, and I've also been using this for more divinatory kind of readings instead of just self-development or things like that, and that has also worked really well. I have used it once to decipher a dream I had, and it was really spookily accurate. This deck is really beautiful. I love that it's a good balance of light and shadow. I love that you can actually use it for many things. You could use it for dream interpretation, you could use it for any kind of normal oracle reading, you could pair it with your tarot decks, you could use it for magic like me. It's just a really great deck. I don't really see a lot of people talk about it, so I wanted to mention it because I think it deserves attention. So the last oracle deck I wanted to mention before we move on to tarot is this particular one, which is called Spirit Animal Wisdom by Katie Jane Wright and Nikki Strain. So this is an indie oracle deck. My lovely friend Gemma got it for me for my birthday in March. It's a animal oracle deck, and I have been absolutely loving it this month as well, for, you know, daily card pulls, inspiration, something to meditate on, something to journal about. So it comes with a really, you know, substantive kind of white book for every single card. So every card is a different animal. You'll get the name of the animal, keywords, you get a smaller meaning, and then you get a fuller kind of like text. It has a crystal association, I think, and sometimes an astrological association as well. I love working with crystals, so I always appreciate when someone kind of like mixes crystals with text. This particular deck is an animal deck, so for every single card you get a different animal, and on each card you will get the name of the animal, the element, a keyword, and then a sentence. So it's very similar format to the goddess deck I mentioned, which is for me perfect for daily pulls, because when I'm doing my daily pulls, sometimes I don't want to take out the big guidebook and sit there and read it for ages. Like if I just want a quick message of inspiration or guidance or something like that, or support, then I like those oracle decks that you can just whip up, you take a card, and you can, everything you need is on the card. And of course the guidebook is good, like you can go to the guidebook and get a fuller message, but there's enough on the card that you don't need to read the guidebook, and so I appreciate that. It's helped me to make decisions around lots of different things, even around the content I should be doing, and you know, things around self-care, emotional healing, day-to-day life, just as well as more spiritual issues. And it's definitely a great reader. Like it does, you know, it works for everything. I've also used it before on my channel for, you know, my pick a card readings. I think in one of the first monthly readings I did, I potentially used this. So that would have been a few months ago now, but I need to whip it up for my pick a card readings as well. I really like working with animal energy. There's not just like animals that you would see in the northern hemisphere, there's also animals that you would see in the southern hemisphere. So of course for me, I appreciate that. When it's just like owls and stags and rabbits and foxes and things like that, I'm like, give me whales, give me chameleons, give me sharks, although I don't really want to see that in real life, but you know, I know they're there. Lizards and things like that, that is more up to what animal energy I work with on a daily basis. So I appreciate a deck that has variety in this sense. And look at those backings, they are absolutely gorgeous. Those colors, so nice. Again, I don't see that many people talk about it, so you know, I wanted to mention it because it deserves some attention. Okay, so final category, we have my favorite category, my favorite tarot decks of the month. So this month I have 3 decks to show you. There are some that I have bought this month that are not in my favorite because I'm still getting to know them, I'm still playing with them, some of them I have not received, etc. So you know, when I say favorite, it's not necessarily new decks to my collection. Sometimes I revisit old ones and fall in love with them all over again, kind of like a shop my stash, and sometimes I'll get a new deck and it will be love at first sight and I won't be able to put it down. So the first deck I got is actually a new acquisition. You might have seen it, so if you watch my August 2021 monthly pick a card reading, I try and do monthly pick a card readings. If you didn't know, I do tarot readings and pick a card readings, etc. on you know, pretty much as I do tarot and oracle related contents, and I do pick a card readings always around themes that are more to do self-empowerment, creativity, personal development, guidance, etc. I very much steer away from any kind of readings that is around, are you pregnant, and are you gonna marry this year, and is this person your twin flame, because that is not my jazz. You do you. You know, there's plenty of that out there, that's just not me. But I definitely enjoy doing tarot readings around lots of other themes, more so tailored around self-empowerment and guidance. If you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe and check my channel out. I always like also to create pick a card readings that are inspired by movies or TV shows, etc. For example, I did a pick a card reading that was inspired by the Inside Out Disney movie, so where we're going in depth around what your emotions have to tell you. If your emotions could speak, what would they want to tell you? Because you know, in that Pixar movie, the emotions are little different characters that control our brain, so I'll put a link to that somewhere up here. I've done a Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race inspired pick a card reading, so I try also to do pick a card readings that are different and unique. If you didn't know I do that, this is very much something I enjoy. You know, the reason why I started this channel is because I love cards, I love reading cards, I love using cards, so it's always something I'm very passionate about, is doing my readings online. Actually one that I've showcased in my August 2021 pick a card reading. So I had like 4 choices of tarot deck that you could choose from, and this is one of the choices, and it is the Star Wars Tarot. So it is a indie deck that's based around Star Wars. As simple as that. So this deck I actually got from a French tarot figure. I don't know how you would say, but she's prominent on social media, etc. And she also orders in bulk tarot from independent creators to bring to France, so that it's cheaper than for French people to get from her, because otherwise we pay crazy custom taxes, etc. And because where I live, even though we're like on the other side of the ocean, and you know, I'm in the southern hemisphere in the Indian Ocean, the island I live on is still part of France. Getting from her is cheaper than still getting from artists, depending on the decks, of course. She kind of organized that particular batch of tarots, and it was very limited. So at this moment in time, I don't know if this deck is in print, but I know that the only way to find out is to follow the artist on Instagram and check their news, because this particular batch I have limited edition that is like almost a draft copy. And so I think it was released in a small batch so that the creator could help pay for their child hospital bill. And so they just released a small copy. It's cut, you know, not necessarily perfectly. It's not a perfect deck in any sense. It's a draft, but it was done in a way to like help support the creator. And I believe they're going to release a more evolved copy of this deck soon at some point. But the only way to find out really, because this deck is either out now or it's gonna come out very soon, is to follow the artist Instagram, and the artist Instagram is at Star Wars Tarot. I really enjoy the Star Wars world. I really enjoyed the movie. I am not the biggest Star Wars fan in the sense that I haven't watched any of the animes. I haven't watched, you know, the full blast, because I know that there's not just the movies, I know there's books, there's animes. Like some of my best friends are full-on Star Wars fan, and they have it all, they've seen it all, and they can tell you like the whole history. I'm not a Star Wars pro, but I definitely enjoy the Star Wars universe. So the backs are really fun, you know, you have like the Rebel fleet against the Death Stars, and then it's pretty much a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. One thing I will say is that the suits have been renamed. So for cups you have blasters, wands you have droids, for swords you have sabers, and for pentacles you have tentacles. Pentacles and tentacles, that makes sense, you know, it's pretend like that, it rhymes, so I can get on board with that. Swords as lightsabers totally makes sense to me. It's like they didn't have swords, they had lightsabers, so that's cool. Droids as wands and cups as blasters is where sometimes it loses me, especially blasters as cups, because for me cups are around emotion, intuition. Blasters are just to put hole in people's bodies. So not really the same vibe, right? However, I think that once you do yourself a little cheat sheet, which is what I've done, you know, I just written the equivalent on a little piece of paper, and after you start using the decks for a while, you will easily remember which is which. On some of the card it was a little bit trickier for me to think, okay, is this blasters or is this droids? Because on some of them there's both, because you know, in Star Wars there's a lot of robots, there's a lot of droids, there's a lot of blasters, etc. So on some of them it was a little bit harder to see which is which, but again, it's a case of getting used to the deck. My favorite suit of the deck is the sword suit, so the lightsabers. I really also love the Major Arcana card. Some of those majors are for me iconic. For example, we have Chewbacca as Temperance. I also love the fact that for the sun, we have Ewoks, which are like my favorite little creatures. I think my favorite card is actually the Hierophant, my birth card. The Hierophant is my birth card. And in this particular deck, it is the Holophant, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, sharing his knowledge as a hologram. And I love that as a depiction of the Hierophant, especially considering for once it's not a pope, it's not, you know, a religious figure. And I always thought when I watched Star Wars, even more recently when I rewatched it not that long ago, it makes a lot of ties with personally my personal belief around how the world works. Like, you know, the Force, you could interpret it as being spirit or the universe, and so there's a lot of magic in the Star Wars universe. A couple of the major arcana cards have been renamed. So for example, instead of the devil, we have the Sith, which makes complete sense, has been renamed Darth, like Darth Vader, and he is it's perfect again. Honestly, this is a really great deck. Next tarot deck I've enjoyed this month is actually an oldie but a goodie. So I've had this deck for, I'd say, over a year now, and it was one of those like shop my stash, shop my shelf kind of situation where I realized I hadn't really been using it for a while, and I was like, you know, let me bust it out again. It had been kind of neglected, I must say, and I was a fool because it's a really great deck and I've really enjoyed rediscovering it. In French it's called Le Tarot Divinatoire du Corbeau by Maggie Stiffwater. In English I believe it's called Raven Prophecy, or I'll put the name of it below in English. I can't remember it by hand, but it's something to do with a raven, I think, in the name, and it's definitely by Maggie Stiffwater. So this deck is mass market. You can get it in English and French. It comes with a very great, you know, proper size guidebook, which is very well written actually. French version, it comes with gold edging. I don't know about the English one, but other than that, I think the English one is exactly the same, at least in terms of the images. They're the same, you know, whether you get it in English or French. And I feel like a lot of you would know this deck. It has famous orange borders that a lot of people tend to hate. And at first, when I very first saw this deck, I thought it was, you know, the orange borders were like atrocious to me, and I didn't even pay attention to what was inside, and I judged it by its appearance, which was a huge mistake. At the time I watched a couple of reviews and I realized actually the images are very powerful, very interesting, and they're done in a way that is pippish but not pippish. So I thought it would be a great transition deck for me to feel comfortable with pips, and it has been. So I believe this deck is originally inspired by a young adult book, but I haven't read that, so I can't really talk much about it. All I can say is that you don't need to have read the book to enjoy using this deck, because it's very, you know, intuitive, and, you know, it still follows very closely a regular tarot system. What I love about this deck is the structure. For pentacles, we have roses, and the evolution of a rose from a bud to full-on flowers. Cups, we have ravens, you know, because like I said, this is there's a lot of raven in the story, and that's one of the main things. For fire, we have branches and flames, etc., and lights. And so this deck is very limited color palette. As you can see, usually the background is very dark, very black, and then everything that's put on top, whether it's the ravens, whether it's the fire, whether it's the, you know, whatever elements, because they're done with brighter color, I find it's very incisive. Only luminous card in the deck is the Nine of Cups, which makes so much sense to me, because the Nine of Cups is a card of happiness, self-sufficiency, self-love, so I absolutely love that. But other than that, in terms of color scheme, you can see it's a pretty darker deck. It is definitely a punchy deck. The way it depicts the minor arcana is very interesting, considering it doesn't depict scenes. So that's why I love this deck, and that's why I've fallen in love with it again, is that it will only show hands or roses or ravens. It won't show a full-on scene. So that's what I meant by the fact that it's slightly pippish. So for example, for the Five of Pentacles, we have a flower losing its petal, like a flower that's, you know, nearly dead, dying at least. And that is a perfect representation of destitution, loss, you know, material loss. everything that the Five of Pentacles can represent, feeling left out, feeling like lack, you know, scarcity mindset, everything like that. So look at this Two of Swords. It showcases like someone who's got hands tied, so difficulty, impossibility to make a choice, feeling like you can't escape, feeling like, you know, you're trapped and you need to come up with a solution. This particular representation of the Knight of Swords is so powerful. It's like very shadow-like, it's very cruel. Seven of Swords gets a bad rep, and you know, it's a card that we always see depicted the same. It's oftentimes someone sneaking away, carrying a lot of swords. Like, I feel like it's very rare that creators try to depict the Seven of Swords in a way that is a little bit more original. I guess because it's a concept that isn't so potentially as faceted as some others. But this particular Seven of Swords with like crossing fingers in the back, I find so interesting, especially because if you pay attention to the hand, they have tattoos or incisions on the hands that is the exact same as the one that the Magician has on the Magician card. So it's almost like showcasing also the trickster side of the Magician card, which I'm really here for it. It's a little bit deeper, it's definitely very tailored for shadow work. It's not, you know, there's a little bit of blood in this deck. There's a little, like you've seen the Knight of Swords, you know, is like the scissors with blood on it. I find it very deep. I think this deck has a lot of layers, and the fact that it portrays the minor arcanas and the major arcanas in a way that is so unique, with keeping like very limited objects and very limited item, but throughout, and just making them evolve depending on, you know, the card. I find that really interesting. Okay, so the last deck I wanted to mention is actually an indie deck that I feel so stupid I forgot to mention in my recent favorite indie tarot decks, because it's honestly one of my favorite decks. And I think the reason why I forgot to include it in my favorite indie decks is because it was out on my table, because it's always out. I've done a recent video that's showcasing my favorite indie decks. I've classified it all by category, so there's a deck for nature lovers, there's a deck for romantic readings, there's a deck for like people who like modern world, modern depiction, etc. So I've tried to cater for everyone. So this is a Holy Spectrum Tarot. It is an indie deck, like I mentioned, and I'll put the link of the website where you can get it below, so you can buy it straight from the artist. So I have the first edition, where the backs are completely black, the sides are matte black, and the color scheme is very, as you can see, it's very, very colorful. It's supposed to follow the spectrum of color, like the light spectrum that's got like all the rainbow colors. So the first edition that I have now is discontinued, but there is a second edition available, and I don't necessarily know what the full changes are. So I don't know if it'd be the same backs, you know, the plain one, or if he's now made something on it. I know that a couple of the images have been changed from the first to the second, but overall it should be the same. It's definitely the same concept anyway, with, you know, very, very colorful cards. So this deck is for me one of my workhorses. I use it very regularly, and it was created by the partner of Lindsay Mack, who is a tarot teacher. I really appreciate her work. So I've followed her tarot course 2 years ago. She had a tarot for the wild soul. I think she's since then releases other courses for whether you're beginner or you're you know, advanced, whether you want to learn tarot or you want to go deeper, etc. She's got something for everyone. But I absolutely adore Lindsay's approach to tarot. I adore the emotional layers she puts into it. I adore the fact that she's very determined at making her courses inclusive. She talks about things like social justice, disability, and so her partner created this tarot deck inspired from Lindsay's teachings, and because I really resonate with her vision of the tarot, of course I resonate really with this vision of the tarot as well. Not to mention that the artwork is absolutely stunning and that the colors are so vibrant, and when you do a spread and there's like bright red, bright pink, bright green next to each other, it's really striking. The quality of this deck is how it depicts each card, how it translates the concept behind each card into an image, done in a way that it still follows the RWS, in, you know, but it's done differently. It's like it's a new interpretation, and this deck is just super well thought in terms of how they've depicted every card. One of my favorite cards is the Tower, which normally the Tower and I have a very tumultuous relationship. Who doesn't? I mean, you know, some people like the Tower card. I do not. Every time it comes out, I tell it to fuck off. Because I don't want Tower in my life. I don't need it. Every time it comes up, I'm like, not today, Satan. I can appreciate why it's here, and of course, I'll welcome it, I'll read it, I'll include it, but I don't like it, right? It's like when your mom made you eat vegetables when you were a child, you knew it was good for you, you had to eat it, you would eat it, but it didn't necessarily mean you enjoyed it, right? For me, the tarot card is like the boiled Brussels sprout of the tarot, like you had to eat it as a child, but it doesn't mean you enjoyed it. Same thing. In this particular deck, I do really enjoy the way that it was depicted, because normally the Tower card is done in a way where it's like, it's not very hopeful. However, in this particular depiction, as you can see, there's a tower being cracked open, etc. But the person is like surrounded by light, and they're in some kind of like a fetal position, and so it's almost like they're protected. The universe is making sure that whatever, they're not falling, they're being rescued. And for me, that is the biggest difference in terms of mindset. So whenever you pull the Tower, you don't feel like you're being punished. It's actually you're being rescued from something, and you're going to be taken care of. And I appreciate that. Like, you know, it feels less daunting. It feels less like a sentence almost. The Judgment and I have had a tumultuous relationship in the sense that it was one of those cards that for me, when I learned tarot, I didn't really understand it. Like when you speak about judgment, you know, when you read a lot of the books, it's an angel blowing a trumpet and people are rising from the dead. And that's a very religious kind of connotation that doesn't resonate with me because I was not raised in a Catholic background at all. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, someone blowing a trumpet, people are rising from the dead, feels very biblical, but it didn't really like speak to my soul. So this particular card that's been renamed Awakening, here it's something I can very much more understand. It's in the sense that it's an awakening, it's an elevation, it's a realization, it's an epiphany. Here we see this person that's like, it's almost like they're in the Matrix and they've decided to like wake up and look around. You know, like in the Matrix when you have a choice between the blue pill and the red pill. I have not seen it for a while, so I don't know which one is which. But Judgment is deciding to take the pill that makes you see beyond the Matrix, that takes you out of the fake world. This is what Judgment is for me now. Of course, it has to do everything to do with realizing our place in the world, realizing how work for us to do to be better human beings, how we can potentially be better allies, etc. For me, all of this is now part of the Judgment card, which I did not see when there was like just an angel blowing a trumpet and people coming out of the graves. Because for me, people coming out of the graves is more like zombie apocalypse, and that's a different story. It's just a very solid workhorse for me, and I wanted to mention because it didn't make an appearance in my favorite indie tarot deck, and it definitely should have. So thank you so much if you've made it this far. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, then don't hesitate to give my video a thumbs up. It really means a lot. And if you want to see more of me or of my content, don't hesitate to subscribe, because like I said, I post every single week. And I really want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been commenting, everyone who's been subscribing. It's been so wonderful to read all of your comments, and you've all been super kind and just awesome. I really hope you had a wonderful month of July. I hope that you're taking care of yourself, that you're being kind to yourself. And as per usual, until my next video, I am sending you lots and lots of good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!